Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are going to demystify epilepsy, which is actually one of the world's most common neurological conditions. We're going to break down the science, how it's diagnosed, and maybe most importantly, the practical ways you can help. So let's just dive right in with the big question. What is actually happening inside our heads when the brain's incredibly complex signaling system suddenly goes wrong? Answering that is really the key to understanding everything else about epilepsy. All right, so first up, we're getting right into the core of it. We're going to explore the biology behind what you can basically think of as an electrical storm happening inside the brain. Okay, so here's the official clinical definition from our source material. It sounds pretty academic, right? But the main idea is this. It's a sudden, totally uncontrolled burst of electrical energy. But what does that abnormal activity actually look like? What does it feel like for the person experiencing it? This image really helps paint a picture, doesn't it? Just imagine all the normal, orderly communication in your brain suddenly gets hijacked by this massive, chaotic surge of electricity. It's literally like a thunderstorm just erupting out of nowhere. And that's pretty much what's going on during a widespread or generalized seizure. To really get the chemistry here, you gotta think of the brain as being in this constant, delicate balancing act. On one side, you've got the go signals. Those are the accelerators. They tell the brain's neurons to fire. On the other side, you've got the stop signals, the brakes, which keep everything in check. A seizure happens when that balance just gets thrown way off. Either there's way too much go or not enough stop. The accelerator basically gets floored and the brakes just fail. You know, a lot of people think that all seizures involve those dramatic convulsions we see in movies, but that's a huge misconception. The reality is, well, it's way more diverse. It's not just one type of seizure. There are many. And you can really see the difference between the two main categories right here. On one hand, you have a focal seizure. Think of it like a small fire starting in just one room of a house. But a generalized seizure, that's the full-on electrical storm we talked about, involving huge networks all across the brain, right from the very start. And this just gives you a little snapshot of how varied they can be. You've got the tonic-clonic seizures, which are the ones most people recognize. But then you have absence seizures, which can look like someone is just zoning out or daydreaming, or even tiny, brief muscle jerks. What a seizure actually looks and feels like depends entirely on where that electrical storm is happening in the brain. So you might think seizures just happen out of the blue, right? Well, not always. Our source material points out that certain things can actually lower the brain's seizure threshold. Things we all experience, like being super tired, stressed out, or even alcohol withdrawal, can make that delicate balance between the brain's stop and go signals a whole lot more fragile. Okay, so how do doctors go from seeing something that might be a seizure to actually confirming a diagnosis of epilepsy? Let's walk through that process. What's really interesting is that this whole diagnostic journey, it doesn't usually start with some high-tech machine. It starts with a human story. Getting a clear description from someone who saw what happened is the most important first piece of the puzzle. After that, you get into the tests, like an EEG to actually record the brain's electrical signals, and often an MRI to see if there's any structural reason for the seizures. Now, this is a really, really important point. Just because someone has one seizure, it doesn't automatically mean they have epilepsy. A diagnosis usually comes when there's a high risk of it happening again. And with about a 40% chance of it happening again, you can see why doctors are so careful to look at all the evidence before they make that call. So what happens after a diagnosis is made? This next part is all about the day-to-day reality of managing the condition and, what the long-term outlook is like. Look, managing epilepsy is so much more than just taking a pill. Of course, anti-epileptic drugs are a huge part of treatment. They help restore that electrical balance in the brain. But lifestyle is just as crucial. We're talking about understanding your personal triggers, making smart safety choices around things like driving or swimming, and, absolutely critically, building a strong support system to handle the social and emotional side of things. And the long-term outlook? Well, it's actually incredibly positive for a lot of people. Just look at this data. After 20 years, a full 70% of people are seizure-free, either with or without medication. That is a powerful and really hopeful statistic. It shows that for most people, getting long-term control is absolutely an achievable goal. Okay, this brings us to what might be the most important practical part of our entire explainer, what you can do. Knowing how to respond safely and effectively if you ever see someone having a seizure, well, it can make all the difference in the world. Let's just walk through this. It's actually pretty simple. Your number one job is safety. Gently move them away from anything dangerous. Then check the time. When the seizure stops, roll them onto their side. That just helps them breathe easier. And then you just stay with them. You only need to call for help if it goes on for more than 5 minutes or if they seem to be injured. And this, right here, this is the one thing you absolutely have to remember above all else. Do not hold the person down and never, ever put anything in their mouth. These are old, dangerous myths that can cause serious harm. The best and most helpful thing you can do is just keep them safe from their surroundings and let the seizure run its course. Let's just circle back for a second to that hopeful statistic we saw a minute ago, because this part is amazing. After 20 years, a full 50% of people who have epilepsy are seizure-free without needing any medication. That single number tells you so much about the brain's incredible ability to recover and adapt. So yeah, the data paints a really hopeful picture, but it also leaves us with one final big question to think about. Knowing that so many people can achieve long-term remission, how can we as a society get better at understanding this condition, dismantling the stigma, and truly supporting everyone on their journey with epilepsy?